Hello and welcome to ET Retail's exclusive curtain raiser series ahead of our flagship e-commerce and digital native summit 2023. Today we are in conversation with the Chieftain of one of India's biggest venture capital firms. He has also been the mentor and an early investor to some of the most popular D2C brands of the country. We have with us Mr. Kanwaljit Singh, the co-founder and managing partner of Fireside Ventures. Hello sir, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, thank you so much.
So sir, the theme of our discussion is Rise of India's Digital Economy. And when we speak of retail, I think it's fair to say that it's the era of digital brands. But to get a reality check on ground, how big an opportunity is India right now for homegrown as well as global brands?
So interestingly, India is a very interesting contradiction in terms of how the consumption happens. It's a very large consuming economy, it's a growing economy, very young population. So one would have expected that this will be the home of many large brands in the country. Yeah. But the reality is that we don't have too many branded players in the market because the whole construct of building consumer brands has been very difficult and very complicated, especially because the distribution requirement for these brands, say 10 years ago, was largely dependent on mom and pop stores and mass media advertising. So what is really happening now is that with the digital ecosystem, the proliferation of new brands which are catering to this young millennial Gen Z population has become really a huge phenomenon. And that we feel is just the start of the whole opportunity. So I would say we are still scratching the surface.
That's a very motivating sentiment. And yeah, it's day zero, it is still.
It is, yeah.
So when we, it's a broader question now, but from an investor's lens, are there any green flags that, you look at before investing in a business?
So, honestly, we are early stage investors. So if I say the very repeated sentence everybody talks about is we bet the jockey before the horse. So for us, the founding team, their motivation, their passion, the purpose on why they are building a brand becomes a very important stake in the ground in deciding where to invest. Obviously, the market and what the white spaces in the market are the other important thing. And like I said, this is such a vast market that there are always going to be lots and lots of spaces where disruptive brands can come in. So we invested in a company like Mamaearth, say 6 years ago. But then we did Ayurveda experience, then we did Pilgrim, then we did Nat Habit. So there is space for a lot more brands than what we would imagine. If one big brand had happened, can you do anything else besides that?
Wonderful. So with changes in the current market conditions, there has been a lot of talk about profitability. The question here arises, one, for new age startups, is it really necessary to look at profitability at such an early stage? And second, can growth and profitability really go hand in hand?
So I think second answer is yes, but I will nuance it a little bit. Sure. So, what we like to call more important at this stage of the company's evolution is unit economics. So if the company is offering a product which consumers value, if they connect with the brand, if they see real value in that offering, then there is a certain price they are willing to pay for it. And that then determines the entire economics of that company. If you say that, I'm going to make 10%, 15% gross margin on my product, then clearly the consumer does not have that, desire to pay a larger price for it. So most of our companies, I would say, would have gross margins above 50 to 60%, depending on different categories. Now, once you have that fundamental right, then you start looking for consumer love, you start looking for repeats, you start looking for the cost of acquisition coming down as consumers start buying you on a regular basis. So that then leads to profitability. So I would say that to start a brand today in India and expect that you will have profitability is not realistic. But to say that the investment in the brand is going in the right spaces and you're not trying to cut prices and continue to acquire customers at any cost, I think that behavior is changing, which is for the good, I believe.
Wonderful. I think this is going to be one of the important takeaways for all the entrepreneurs out there.
And I think smart entrepreneurs understand that. So at least we have not seen entrepreneurs who have been, desperate to grow at any cost and burn money, almost as if, there is no tomorrow. So at least in our industry, in our space, we have seen far more responsible, growth. So you may not be profitable, but you will certainly have path to profitability, and you will certainly invest in the right spaces as you are building out the brand.
Wonderful. So while for D2C brands, e-commerce has been a great enabler and a great platform. Currently in the market, do you feel there's some sort of unbundling happening, or as I put it, is D2C coming out of the shadow of e-commerce?
So again, the terminology gets a little confusing. So what the way I would like to describe it is that these are all channels. These are all ways that you are reaching the consumer with the best possible product, best possible solution, and the best access point that consumer is looking for. We have always believed that the disruption in brand building happened because of digital first. So both e-commerce and D2C play an important role in that. E-commerce is the platform. They obviously have a lot more consumer access to that particular platform. There are services that they offer. So a lot of consumers do tend to buy from these platforms. But the D2C part is equally important because it tells you directly you are connecting with the consumer, what are their preferences, what are they looking for. So it's like a laboratory in some sense to understand the consumer. But as the business grows, we also see a very logical extension into offline. So the whole concept of omni-channel, and it's become a buzzword today, is nothing new. I mean, it's really the brands and the companies deciding which particular channel makes sense at which point of time. So almost all of our larger companies are today omni-channel, and that's not something that is happening because it's flavor of the month. I think that's a natural progression of the growth that they are seeing.
Right. There's going to be channelless retail going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have spent a lot of time while working in the FMCG industry. So you have the taste of offline retail. What can online businesses actually learn from offline to go deeper in the country? Because currently, if we look at e-commerce, the penetration stands at single digit. Sure. So what is going to drive that?
So I think what we are finding as a very interesting convergence is this whole debate about online versus offline at one level is superfluous. So we are saying that if I have a brand, let's say a beauty brand, and I want to experience and connect with the consumer at every touch point, then I have a very clear role that Amazon or a Flipkart or a Nykaa plays for me. I have a very clear role that my own website plays for me. But I also have a very clear role that a very selective offline channel will play for me. I don't need to go to 25,000 stores in a city like Bangalore. So designing for each brand, each sector is probably the most important learning. So, what can we learn from offline, I think, is really about two things. One is thinking about how do you design your strategy for offline. And to me, that it means not just distributing in those selective outlets, but also how do you plan your marketing plans around that. We're talking to our companies saying, look at a city as a cluster, look at a zone as a cluster, and then do a 360 around it. What are the channels? What are the marketing? What are the advertising? The second thing I think which is important is technology is going to allow us to be more efficient if we integrate these channels. Logistics, warehousing, supply chain, all of that can be much better managed. Again, we have a company called Sleep Company. They have a very, very interesting model where their stores are not selling anything. These are experience stores. You go to the store, you check out the mattress, you check out the chairs. But eventually you order on the same platform that you would have ordered online. It's the same process, the same backend, and then the delivery comes to your house. Now they're optimizing this in a wonderful way. And I think that's the way we think that the omni-channel play will play out.
Wonderful. I think this sets tone for how the future of retail would look like.
I think so, absolutely.
Just one last question, sir. From an investor lens again, what is the next big category in retail where investors will be betting their money? So
I think like I said, and you said, we are in day zero. I totally agree. I think we are really at the start of the journey, and therefore, is there space for growth? Very exciting brands in food and beverages, personal care, beauty. I think all of that still is a very, very large market. And we see enough innovation happening on product, on business models, on how you're engaging the consumer with solutions. I think the additional opportunities which are emerging on the business side, health and wellness. I think that is really emerging as an area which, again, as Fireside, we are doubling down on our investments in health and wellness, whether it's nutraceutical, whether it's, good for you, and all the way into, specific solutions. Like we have a company which does hair loss solutions. We have a company which does menstrual health solutions for women. We have a diabetes reversal business in Fitterfly. So we believe that the convergence of consumer brands, healthcare is all coming together. In terms of opportunity for growth and how large brands can be built, we do believe that small town India, Bharat, tier 2, tier 3 is going to be the next big frontier. And that is also going to allow much bigger brands to get built, because you have to start then designing for these markets. My personal, wish list and my fond hope is that in the next few years, we will start seeing some global brands coming out of India. And that is really, one of those big, let's say, North Star for all of us, saying, can we truly see an Indian brand going international? I mean, we already have Ayurveda experience, doing really well in global markets, but a true blue Indian brand, succeeding in international markets, that's a big desire for us.
Absolutely. I completely second your thought on that, sir. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time today, sir.
Pleasure.